God, you know what? It's been 3 weeks since I've been in this chair, but I'm glad to be back and talking all things Cleveland Browns, especially now that things are a tad bit more optimistic. Welcome to the Cleveland Brits podcast previewing, should I say, the Indianapolis Colts game on Sunday.
Dog tail! Dog tail! Same old Browns, boys! Just the same old Browns! Garrett's gonna get him, and he knocks the ball away. Caught by Donovan Peoples-Jones! Touchdown! He got it! He got Chubb! He's to the 30, 20, 10, 5, touchdown! Wow, what a struggle! The way it should be, I guess. Brownies, here we go! Woo, woo. Here we go, Brownies!
Yes, definitely some more optimism in the air. It's been quite a roller coaster while I've been away, but both Shaun and Owain have kept things ticking along in my absence. Just Shaun with me tonight. Owain wasn't able to make it for the preview pod, but he should be back for Sunday night's roundup, which will hopefully also be positive. Shaun, good evening to you, buddy.
Evening, pal. Welcome back.
Many thanks. How have you? How have you been? You know, you're looking well, which is always good. Cleveland merch on, which is better than what I've done tonight.
Yeah, all good, mate. All good. Like I say, it's been a little bit up and down, mate, whilst you've been away. But like you say, things hopefully on the ascent. So yeah, all good, buddy. All good.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, let's just talk about the last 3 weeks. You know, because 4 weeks coming up to now. So you had obviously the Titans win, of which looked like Deshaun Watson finally. You know, the offense finally looking the way that it should, you know, finally looking the way that we thought that it could be. You know, even without Nick Chubb there was still that, you know, you could see the blueprint was coming there. And then he ends up busting his shoulder. We now know that it's a micro tear in his rotator cuff, which caused the umming and ahhing as to whether or not he'll play, and then he didn't play against the Ravens. And then you've got DTR coming in, who, as we learned, was not ready. So then you had that. Realistically, it's just call it a scratch game, just void, and then move on, which is pretty much what this podcast did by not even putting out a review. Just didn't class it as a game. And I was perfectly fine with that, even though I stayed up till 4 a.m. watching the first half. Then you got the bye week and just a looming question of obviously Watson, but then the 49ers coming to town, and then this happened.
Mooney, no good!
Of which I think that you played about 19 times during the show on Monday.
So glad I downloaded that clip. It's been worth its weight in gold, hasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. And the fact that it's now saved in the little assets here means that we can pull it out whenever we need a little bit of a boost. How many times do you reckon you've listened to that over the course of the last week?
Oh, mate, I've lost count, honestly. It's, as me and Owain said on Monday, it was one of those games that we felt going into it like just everything sort of needed to go right, and it was just one of those games that everything kind of did. Just an awesome performance. You know, we talked at length on Monday about the defense and how stellar it's been. You know, on historical pace to do something really special.
The stats are ridiculous, and there are more stats every day. And you know, it's. I mean, we won't bore with all. You've probably all seen them on Twitter and all sorts, and you can hunt them out. But like you said, at no point during that game, apart from the first drive when McCaffrey walked it in, you know, did I think that the Browns were going to lose this game?
No,
it felt comfortable almost. PJ Walker, San Francisco 49ers, Kyle Shanahan. What?
It felt comfortable until until it nearly didn't.
Until it didn't. Yeah, but that's the Browns' way. We're not allowed easy wins.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, mate. Yeah, it was like I say, it was just a fantastic performance, and hopefully it's something there for them to build on. I ummed and ahed as to whether or not, sort of a few days after events, was this possibly the statement win of the Kevin Stefanski era? You go back to that.
It's possibly the best regular season win
I certainly think regular
as far
season.
as I can remember.
Yeah, I certainly think regular season. You obviously go back to the playoff year and obviously the winning Pittsburgh. I know there's this ridiculous portion of the fan base that give him zero credit for that because he was locked away in his basement with COVID, which is just, absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, there are a lot of people that don't give him any credit for that year.
Yeah, exactly. So, but, like I say, when I thought about it, I was like, do you know what? It probably is the best win, certainly the biggest statement win. And like I say, the thing is now, mate, we're going to move on to it. As you said, they've got to now back it up, and they've got a great opportunity to do so this weekend.
Absolutely. You know what? Before we do that, though, you've just given me a great seg idea, although we'll only do it for like 5 seconds. Is there a game that rivals that one in the regular season? Because I'm now trying to think back to the wins we've had. There aren't many. If you think back to our fandom, there are definitely fewer and further to choose. The only ones that I can really think of in terms of like statement dubs, you can't really class the Jets unlock the fridges game and Baker's debut, etc., because that's not really a stat. It's just more of a getting out of the doldrums. Maybe the Titans win back in that shootout potentially, or the Ravens win. I think that was in the playoff year at Ravens early in the season. But it almost seems as if this was way more improbable and maybe way more impactful a win.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, there's been some individually really good performances at key times. I remember back to the Bengals game on the road after the whole OBJ fallout, and everybody thought the Browns were going to capitulate. And I'm just looking back at the scoreboard here, they won that game 41 points to 16. That was a stellar win at the time, and on that particular day, they've had some decent individual efforts at times, 24-22 against the Ravens when they went back-to-back games with the Ravens that kind of kept the season alive. Ultimately ended up not being able to get the job done at the back end of that year. Last season, let's be honest, just was a disappointment on the whole. Whichever way you want to dress it up, I think the Panthers game on opening day, as much as opening day doesn't tend to mean anything, it obviously got the monkey off the back that they'd never won an opening day forever. So that was huge, and obviously that was KG York's finest moments in Cleveland. But yeah, like I say, I think the more you look at it, certainly in the Stefanski era, I think in terms of regular season, absolutely, last weekend was the standout, if you like, in terms of, against the odds, certainly heavy underdogs going into it. Let's be honest, nobody was really giving the Browns a chance, even us as podcast.
We shouldn't have won that game.
No, exactly that, mate. Exactly that. So yeah, like I say, superb. Hope it continues. And like I say, when you look at the schedule now, you kind of it's always tempting to look too far ahead because the NFL is so week to week, as we know. I mean, you only had to look at other results last week, let alone ours, to sort of see how difficult it is to predict things. But it certainly, on paper at least, opens up, doesn't it?
Absolutely, and it's something I've been pushing all week, really. For anyone that follows the Twitter handle Believe in Brit, you'll see that I've been pushing a few things to get people to really start believing in this year, even with all the chaos. Realistically, our schedule now, we have, if you think about what people are ranking teams at, we're ranked at around 10th in the NFL, which is probably about right, really. Especially if Watson's able to start playing again, and we don't have any more injuries, etc. We are probably about a bottom of top 10 sort of range, right? A wild card team seems about right. There are only 2 teams higher than us currently in the rankings that we have to play again, which is the Ravens and the Jags. And even then, the Jags are, both teams are only just above us on those. The average ranking is 17th, and we play teams all the way down to like 29th. So, that's a really good position to be in after 5 games. When you've got 11 games to go and that's what you're reading.
Yeah, look, it's a tidy schedule the rest of the way, and that win is huge in as much as it kind of gives you back the Steelers game that you gave away.
Yes.
Which ultimately, you don't want that to come back and bite you in the backside come the end of the season. But if you were putting the 49ers down as a loss on the schedule, you've kind of got one of those back, haven't you? So,
yeah.
So,
I had us at 3-2 at this point.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, I mean, I was obviously quite optimistic at the start of the season. Again, let's be honest, they should have won that Pittsburgh game. I know there was
They should have, yeah. Then the Ravens game becomes completely different.
Yeah, exactly. I think they should probably be sitting, in all honesty, at 4-1. Well, we are 3-2, but like I say, that's why that Niners win was really significant, because it just gives you that boost. Like I say, it gives you back the game that nobody expected you to get. Be interested to see if the Niners bounce back. They've obviously got the Bengals this weekend, so they potentially can do us another favour this weekend.
That would be nice, and the Bengals to go free. Oh, no, Bengals are on a bye.
Is it next weekend? Sorry, then.
Yeah, it must be next weekend. I was going to say Bengals are on a bye this week.
It's definitely the Bengals' next game, I believe, is the 49ers, so that must be next weekend then, as you say. So
yeah. Oh, they've got a week in their locker just like the Bengals. Then that will be tasty next week, actually. Yeah, that'll be nice. But as you keep alluding to, let's take a look at the next week rather than the next several weeks. The Indianapolis Colts. I'm way too optimistic when I start looking at like 5-6 games ahead, and I've done that way too many times this week. So obviously the Indianapolis Colts, they're going through a bit of a rough patch themselves. They've been able to keep themselves in some games. I'd probably say that they are performing around how you'd expect, especially considering that their rookie franchise quarterback is now out for the season, and they are now in Minshew mania, no matter how timid that might be. Knock on wood. The Colts got some playmakers, but realistically, and I think that you said this directly after the 49ers game, Shaun, and I think you said it on the pod as well. This is the sort of game where the defense should really feel confident about coming out of this with, single digit almost. They should be going out here with the aim of giving the Colts absolutely nothing. And for the Browns, even if they were to go out with PJ Walker again this week, which is a possibility, Watson is listed as questionable for Sunday. But even with PJ Walker, just say to him, look, score twice.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you look at the Colts overall from an offensive output, they're averaging around about, I think it's 20 to 21 points a game, something around that kind of mark. So as you say, you would like to think with the way that our defense has been playing, we'd be able to bring that average or keep them below that average. I think offensively, Gardner Minshew's done a reasonable job, I would say. Since he has come in. You could make the argument that he was a little bit unlucky in terms of what happened at Jacksonville. Obviously, as soon as they were in a position to draft Trevor Lawrence, that was always going to be the end for Gardner Minshew, and he's obviously bounced around now and ended up now with the Colts. But what he did last week in the game that the Colts lost was he threw the ball, I think, 55 times. If we can get Gardner Minshew dropping back 55 times on Sunday, then I think we will be in for an absolute field day.
And short fields as well.
Yeah, the Colts need the run game to work well. And as much as anything, the one thing that this Browns defense hasn't done a lot of is actually come up with the big takeaway plays.
Yes, agreed.
Been lots of 3 and outs, and I'm not complaining about the fact that we haven't done that, but what it suggests is we've been very stingy against the run. We've forced teams into third downs a lot, and then we've had excellent coverage on the back end. If we can reciprocate that game plan, take the running game away, if you like, make it a bit of a non-factor. Jonathan Taylor's been back for 2 weeks now, hasn't really got going as of yet.
No.
Now, whether that's deliberate on the part of the Colts and almost having him on a little bit of a pitch count. I don't know. But it would seem strange. You know, he had 8 carries last week. Zach Moss had 7. You know, he was slightly more involved last week from a receiving standpoint than he was his previous week. He had 5 receptions last week. But as I say, bear in mind the context that Minshew was obviously throwing it all over the yard after they got behind early. I wouldn't necessarily read a great deal into that. So I think if we can neutralise the threat of Moss and Taylor, then I think they'll be in good shape. Just to give you some further context on the point I'm making about Taylor, the week before, Moss had 23 carries to Taylor's 6 when he came back and made his season debut. You know, and he only had 1 additional sort of target through the air that week. So very, very strange what they've done there. They've obviously paid him and they were sort of using him as a rotational piece, which seems counterproductive. So maybe this is the week they look to actually sort of get him back sort of up to his full workload. But
yeah, like you say, maybe it's a pitch count thing. You're paying him, so you don't want to ruin him, and you already know that the season's a bust. So, you know, you might as well, you know, not risk him.
Yeah, there's the potential there. Absolutely, there's the potential there. So, but like I say, if we can minimise the opportunities that they have to run the ball, like I say, keep them in 3rd and long situations, and that's been the Browns' heyday, hasn't it? You know, I think, like I say, one of those stats that's gone around, he's only allowing a 3rd down conversion something like 20-odd% of the time, which is crazy. I mean, how many times did we get to 3rd down last year, and you just almost thought, well, you might as well move the chains.
Yeah,
you know, it's just phenomenal the difference this time around. The amount of 3 and outs and
exactly. You get to 3rd down now and you get excited. You know, I don't think I've ever had a team in no matter what sport where I'm like, we're on defense. Let's go. Like, I'll actually prick my ears up more now watching the defense.
Well, exactly that, mate. And don't get me wrong, we obviously want the offense to do better than what it's doing. You'd like these games to be a shade more comfortable, but watching the defense play, like you say, he's genuinely excited at the minute.
Yeah.
It really genuinely is. You know, you can see that they're playing with a smile on the face. You can see that they're enjoying the scheme. You know, there's some players that are coming up really big. You know, Grant Delpit has gone up to a different level this year. JOK, he's absolutely flying around to the football.
Yes, he is.
I think it's huge for us that Anthony Walker looks like he's going to go this weekend. Obviously, he ended up in concussion protocol, but it looks as though he's going to be good to go. So he'll be banged up.
Yeah, he's fine. He practiced in full today.
Yeah, he'll be banged up for this on his return to Indy. You know, so everything.
He played for Indy.
Yeah. and of course, the guy that people obviously remember that plays for Indy is. Well, I always go to call him Darius Leonard, but he likes to be called Shaq Leonard these days, doesn't he? But obviously he was initially Darius, but he was very complimentary of Anthony Walker once he did join the Browns and said how instrumental he was in his success. You know, so I think Walker's an underrated piece to this defense. To be honest, I think the fact that they've been able to bring him back for next to nothing, he's one of the shrewdest business that's happened. I think he's massive. So.
Yeah, it was massive to us for sure. Yeah. Absolutely. Just run through the injury list for you, because that's been a point of real contention this week. The fact that we've had quite a few that's been on the list, and obviously one of the main pieces being a constant question on the list. You've got Joel Petonio. He practiced in full today. Harrison Bryant was limited both yesterday and today. He is questionable. Cooper had a bit of an ankle issue, but he practiced in full today. Kareem Hunt is questionable with a thigh injury. He has had limited involvement the last 2 days. Newsome with his hamstring, again questionable, limited last 2 days. Shiny Taki is out. He did not play, did not practice today. He also got a hamstring issue. Cedric Tillman's been on the injury list with a hip injury, but he practiced in full all week. Walker, as you've discussed already, he practiced in full today after being watched out for a concussion. And Watson with that right shoulder. Now, we have heard all sorts this week. He actually came out with a press conference at long last. You know, I think that the thing of which Browns fans have really hated is the smoke and mirrors around what's actually going on. He said it's a micro tear. It could be a day. It could be weeks. for it to heal properly, but he will be out there as soon as he feels like he can control the ball properly and not be a hindrance to the Browns. It's the first time I've heard Watson not want to be a hindrance to the Browns, but hey-ho. He was limited yesterday and practiced in full today. He is officially down as questionable, but as you can tell, trending upwards. I mean, just by looking at that, Shaun, obviously there's 2 or 3 pieces there that's questionable that you'd wish weren't questionable. But, against the Colts, you look at that and you think, we're in a strong position there, even with that. After looking at last week, the way the defense is playing, the way that the offense is playing with the heart that it has, this is one of I worry more about Stefanski being able to keep these guys motivated through this one after such a big win against the 49ers, where a lot of passion and heart was needed. I think that's going to be more the question going into this one than anything else.
You could well be right. I hope we're wrong on that, because I think the culture seems to be right. I don't think the coaching staff will allow that to happen. I think they need to be banged up for it. And as I say, you've only got to look around the league at the scores from a week ago. No game is a gimme, and any game in the NFL is a difficult game to win. I think if you look at the way that, like you say, the Browns injuries tend to be sort of trending, I think we're at the point with this week where it's not as much of a concern whether Watson does or doesn't go. Like you say, there's been more transparency. You can agree or disagree with how that's been handled. Wine made the point that the Browns don't owe anybody anything on that, and that's a fair enough point to have. So whether he goes or not, I think there's a much more of a comfort level that the Browns will be prepared for that eventuality should it roll around. And I think that's the big difference with the Ravens game. It just seemed as though everybody just assumed he was going, and then obviously when he didn't, it threw everything into disarray. I think PJ Walker will be ready if he's needed on the weekend, and I think again you'll be looking for him to just do enough as he did, last week. Watson returning isn't the single answer to fixing some of the issues that we've got on the offensive side of the ball. And I think we need to be careful as a fan base to
definitely.
To not go down that route. I think a few people sort of are under the impression that Watson will come back and it'll all be fixed. The last game was his best game. There's no doubt about that. But you want to see that in back-to-back weeks. You want to see
absolutely. And there's no guarantee that he will be at that level when he comes back either.
Exactly that. So, it's obviously going to be a shot in the arm. You want him to play, like I say, whatever your views on him, you want him to be the franchise quarterback for the footballing reasons. So hopefully he does return and he does get back to that Tennessee game as being, the floor for his performance level, because it was by far his best game. It's still not to say he was absolutely stellar in that game either. But there were obviously positive signs. I think from the offense's perspective, I don't think they're going to have to score too many in this one. So again, like I said, there'll be that element of a comfort level there. He's obviously the big name on the injury report to keep an eye for, and he'll be the one that obviously gets all of the headlines at 4:30 on Sunday afternoon when the actives and inactives roll around. That'll be the one that gets mentioned. In terms of the other ones, don't think there's anybody there that particularly is massive in as much as, Harrison Bryant's only a bit part player. I would expect Kareem Hunt to go, to be honest. I don't think they've got too many concerns with Kareem Hunt going. Greg Newsom's one to watch. There always seems to be a niggling injury in the cornerback room between the three of them, doesn't there? And Newsom seems to be the one on the list this week.
You make it sound like they take raffle tickets.
Yeah, well, it often feels like that, doesn't it? There's normally something.
Denzel, that's your name this time. It's been a while. Come on.
Absolutely,
just play dead for a bit.
But we're obviously quite lucky because obviously, you've got Emerson as well. So obviously we're stellar on the outside. There was a lot more 3 safety looks as well last weekend. So I think you'd probably see a lot more of Rodney McLeod as part of the lineup anyway. So I think they're quite happy with the rotation that they've got there. So I think they'll be ready to go. I'm not got too many concerns about that. There are a few issues that we can sort of delve into in a bit more detail, if you like, in terms of depth pieces that's slightly concerning at the moment. But overall, in terms of the big names, it looks like the big names will all be there.
Absolutely. Right. Key thing, prediction. What's your scoreline prediction?
I think the Browns will keep Indianapolis below 14 points. Like I say,
That'd be
I
nice.
think. Well, I mean, again, it depends on your viewpoint, doesn't it? I actually said to a wine that we only conceded 7 points this defense on Sunday, because when you think about the 10 points that 49ers got from their field goal, which was off the back of an interception, and they went backwards on that drive, and then they got the ball at the 8-yard line for the touchdown drive. So, you know, this defense has been lights out. So I see them limiting Indianapolis to 13 at most, which will be a touchdown and a couple of field goals. So I'm going to go for the Colts to score 13. I think the Browns win this one a shade comfortably for the Browns. I think the Browns will get up to something like 24. So I'd say 24-13.
Stupidly enough, I've got the exact same scoreline, 24-13. So I think the last time that we were fully aligned on something, we ended up winning a little bit of money between us. So maybe I go for that exact scoreline on Sky Bet and see what I get.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think, like I say, I think the Browns have got enough to do this one. I just said there, some of the things that slightly concerning, it'll be interesting to see if they start doing anything, is just a little bit concerning now about some of the depth on the O-line. Michael Dunn hit the injured reserve this week. Doesn't appear to have been any moves. Now, like I say, it's not getting talked about a great deal because Joe Batonio seems like he's going to be back. But obviously, should anything now happen, where do we go in next for a sort of lineman, because that's Dunn on IR, that's Conklin on IR. Forbes is seemingly never ever going to play in the NFL. He's got an out designation against him. Obviously Hudson's a tackle. Nick Harris is your backup centre. Slightly concerned about the depth, to be honest, on the O-line. I think that's something.
You wonder whether or not we make a move. Obviously, with the trade deadline looming as well, that will be back end of next week. I think it's the 30th, the trade deadline. So you might see some moves in the next week to see if that gets resolved. And it just depends, obviously, as you say, on whether or not any of these injuries actually move in the right direction or not.
Absolutely, and like you say, I mean, you've only got to cast your mind back a few years. We sort of swung a trade for Wyatt Teller, didn't we? Late round
and look how that worked out.
Exactly, ended up being the starter. So I certainly wouldn't put it past them making a move. I think it's getting to the point that something probably needs to be done, to be honest, just to, like I say, shore it up and give us a little bit of depth. The other thing as well for me, and me and Owen talked about this a little bit on Monday, is just to see what they continue to do now with this wide receiver room. Amari Cooper's obviously the standout. Elijah Moore seemed to have a lot more looks last week. I think when we actually looked at the snap count, DPJ was out there just as much as regular. But something's just not quite working this year in terms of DPJ, whether the quarterback's just not getting through the progressions and looking in that direction. I know we've had a couple of weeks you can write off, if you like, with the weather in week 1. The DTR week 4.
I think it's really difficult, isn't it? Because I remember you guys talking about this on the pod Monday, and I thought to myself, you haven't seen a lot of looks for DPJ, but I do think that Watson's tried. As Watson went through his first few games, he did start to look at DPJ more, and he was a good outlet for him. And then obviously he goes down. DTR's just trying to hit the one read that he's got, and then you've got PJ Walker. I just don't feel there's been enough consistency to make any judgments on that at this point. Maybe that's just me clinging on to DPJ for dear life. But
no, I'm not. Like I say, I'm not suggesting for a minute that I don't want DPJ to be a big part of this offense. Like I say, last year he was excellent, wasn't he? It just seems to be one of those sort of things that this year he just doesn't seem to have been as involved. The one thing I'd say in terms of Elijah Moore is, I don't want to see too much more of this whole putting him in motion and running laterally. I'm a big fan.
Is that because of the fact that a few weeks ago he decided to do that and went 20 yards backwards?
Yeah, well, that play obviously stands out, doesn't it? But I mean, said his name on the pod a few times. I'm a big fan of Jake Burns, who sort of breaks down the film and everything. And he did a really good job with Elijah Moore this week because, if you look at it, it's just not his skill set. If you look at the final drive that we put together against the 49ers, Moore was missed on back-to-back plays, and they're more of the routes that you want to see Moore running, the sort of medium range sort of route. So,
do you know, I was on such a high, and then I saw those videos, and I just wanted to throw my phone into the road. It was so frustrating knowing it was that easy.
Yeah, there were some big misses there, but I mean, he mentioned on his podcast this week about Jalen Darden potentially, doing more of that sort of gadget type role. Which would be interesting to see. He gave us a little bit of a spark on returns last
he's earned
week.
his opportunity for sure.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what they do there. So that will be one to see. But like you say, outside of a bit of our line depth, and I think there'll be the running back room is what the running back room is. We'd like to see it better than what it was, but we said at the time.
To be honest with you, it's working at the moment.
Yeah,
I mean, I've been impressed enough with Jerome Ford.
Yeah, we said at the time, didn't we? You're not going to replace Nick Chubb, so it's just one of those things, unfortunately.
If Kareem Hunt is able to play with that sort of heart on a week in, week out basis, then you've got someone that can give you hard yardage. And Jerome Ford is actually quite good at finding gaps. And that's what you need. That you do see a little bit, like the way that Jerome Ford runs, I see a bit of Chubb in how he runs and how he pauses to find his lanes. And with our O-line, you're afforded that opportunity. And there are 1 to 2 runs a game where he does break off for about 15, 20 yards. And you go, whoa, okay, our running back room might not be terrible. And then there are some where, and this is where I think that you really do miss Nick, is, the 2-yard runs remain 2-yard runs. The 2s aren't 5, which is what Chubb is probably best known for. Yeah. Is turning those 2s into 5s and those 5s into 8s.
Yeah, no, most definitely, mate. Like you say, that is what you're missing, and like you say, short yardage situation and all of that kind of stuff, isn't it? But one thing we didn't mention on the Colts side of things, of course, is big news for them this week that Grover Stewart, their starting defensive tackle, has hit the suspension list. So he'll be
has he?
Yeah, he has. So that should open up things for our running game, because it means good old Taven Bryan. Remember him?
I do.
Yeah. So he now slides into the Colts starting lineup. So that shows you the drop off, if you like, to where Grover Stewart was playing. So yeah, there should be some opportunities. We saw how poor the Browns were against the run last year. They'll get a chance to run right up the gut of Taven Bryan, who obviously was one of the pieces in the middle of our defense last year. So hopefully big stuff for the running game on the weekend.
Yeah, you just like to see a bit of stat padding this week and a bit of confidence boosting on the offense, no matter as to how it ends up looking. But this does feel like it. And then, like you said earlier on in the show as well, this is where the momentum can start to build then. The games which are like the Colts can start to be we should be winning this. We should be winning this well, and then bring ourselves further forward. It's because, the games where the games where it's a bit more even, like the Jags, the Ravens, the Bengals, etc., you need that confidence and those wins behind you to sort of go, yeah, okay, we need this to progress forward.
Yeah, definitely, mate. And I think the other thing as well is if you look at the 5 games that we've played so far, like you say, stick a line through the Cincinnati game in terms of the offensive production, because it was terrible from both sides. It was a really poor day weather-wise.
Yeah,
you can make whatever excuses you want from there. You've then played some real tough defenses and top defenses in the Steelers, in the Ravens, in the 49ers.
And even the Titans. Titans defense is not to be sniffed at.
It's not to be sniffed at, but with that said, it's certainly the weakest one of those 4.
Oh, yeah, like it's not the 49ers, the Ravens, or the Steelers, but it's still probably a top 10 to 15 at worst.
But is it any coincidence that the best game that the Browns have had offensively was when that defense wasn't quite in that stellar bracket? And like I say, this is now you're coming up to a run of games where you've got, the Colts, who are a average to below average defense.
Yeah.
The Seahawks are a middle of the road team, both on the offense.
Defense is what's lacking them. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you've got the Cardinals, who are I think probably 31st ranked defense, probably. So it really does open up, man. So hopefully this offense can, like you say, for the first time this year, be Well, we still want the defense to be the reason that the Colts haven't scored many, but you want the offense
We
to
want
be
the offense to be average. Just average.
If it can be average, mate, and that's all it was last week, if it can be average, we'll win more games than we lose.
In fact, you know what? Just win the turnover battle, or at least tie it, right? We've lost the turnover battle every week so far.
Yeah.
I'd like it to be 0-0. If you give me 0-0 on the turnover battle, I'll be happy, because it will then mean we've probably won the game by about 17-0.
Yeah, if you look at the amount of points that we've given up off turnovers, and as you say, you can basically say we lost the Pittsburgh game through turnovers.
Yep, we absolutely did.
So like you say, if they can clean that up, and that's like we say, this is hopefully the start now for the offense, and like I say, whether it is Watson, whether it's PJ Walker. I think PJ Walker, by the way, gets elevated regardless of Watson. So anybody that reads too much into PJ Walker being elevated on Saturday when that officially comes through, yeah. I think that's just prudent now. He's been stored on the practice squad because, it's the easier thing to do from the roster perspective. I think they're worried if they put DTR on there that somebody will snatch him. So, I would imagine that PJ Walker will be elevated regardless, and they'll carry 3 quarterbacks on game day, or DTR will be active on game day.
Now you've got that on the head. PJ Walker is the de facto QB2, just that he will be a practice squadder and he will be paid as a practice squad.
Yeah,
essentially.
Yeah. It's more the fear, like I said, that somebody will look past DTR's debut and they'll remember back to the preseason, and like you say, you wouldn't necessarily want him on there for somebody just to be able to come and pinch him off you, would you? So
no, exactly. So it's savvy enough in that sense. Right, just before we go, let's do a quick fire of some of the games in week 7. All I want from you is the name of the team that you think is going to win. Nothing more. Tampa Falcons.
I'm not doing very well in this game this year, Josh. You should know this.
You're only 5 points behind me. You're only 10 points off the lead and 5 points behind me.
10 points behind after 6 weeks, did he, mate?
It doesn't help that Oliver and Mark, who are leading the Believeland Brits podcast league in the NFL Pick'ems, have got up to 65, which is quite frankly outrageous when you think of some of the shocks that we've had. In a world where the Giants are 1-5, in a world where the Texans are 3-3, the Cardinals beating the Cowboys and everything else. If you can somehow get 65, then you're a madman. But maybe you need to be a little bit mad. So don't beat yourself up. 60 is still a good score in my book. Tampa Falcons, mate.
Tampa for me.
Yep, same. Bears Raiders. Without Garoppolo, it'll be Hoyer under center.
I've still got to go for the Raiders. I can't trust the Bears. I know they had a good win last week, but I'm
sure. And then also Justin Fields is out as well, isn't it?
I was going to say now Justin Fields, so it's got to be the Raiders.
Yeah. Giants Commanders.
What a stinker. I think I'll pick the Giants at home, but I'm not confident.
Yeah, I think that the Giants did really well against Buffalo, actually. So I think that they finally turned that into some momentum. Here's one that's not a stinker for you. Ravens Lions.
It's at the Ravens, isn't it? It
is, yeah.
I still like the Lions. I'm not convinced by the Ravens.
So this is one that I won't be betting on for love nor money, but I think this is one that the Lions should win, but the Ravens will end up winning.
It's got a chance of being a Justin Tucker walk-off field goal, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has the smell of that.
They're just not convincing now. I didn't even think they were that convincing in the London game, to be honest.
No, they weren't. And the thing is that Jackson nowadays is not convincing as a QB. He's prone to mistakes a game by the looks of it. And,
But they still stuffed us. So.
But they still stuff it. So, you still have to give them some flowers. Patriots Bills.
It's got to be the Bills.
Got to be the Bills. I almost didn't insult your intelligence by asking you that one. Seahawks Cardinals.
Got to be the Seahawks, surely.
Yeah. Here's one of which I'm actually uncertain of. Rams Steelers at Rams.
I think most people will pick the Rams, but I think the Steelers make that a lot tighter than people think.
It's got a Tomlin masterclass written all over it, doesn't it? which means that I'll put the Steelers down and the Rams will win it. Chiefs Chargers, got to be Chiefs, right?
It's got to be the Chiefs. The Chargers are so disappointingly bad.
Well, they just keep shooting themselves in the foot, and it's hilarious.
Particularly on defense, they are just woeful. Patrick Mahomes to pass for 1 million.
Yeah. I don't think you'll get overs on 1 million yards, I'm afraid. Broncos Packers.
Got to be the Packers.
See, this is what separates the madmen from the not madmen. I'm picking the Broncos here.
Oh, my word.
This feels like the kind of game that you go, oof, I'm sorry, such and such did what? I actually think that the Broncos find a way here. I mean, call me crazy.
I don't like the Packers at all. Don't get me wrong. It's not that I have any faith in the Packers, but I've picked the Broncos pretty much most weeks since Russell Wilson's been there, and that's probably why.
I've done the opposite. See, this is the thing. I've picked against them almost all the time and come out well. It's the fact that it's the fact that I now feel like I need to pay the piper once just to keep just to keep things going. Eagles Dolphins for Sunday Night Football.
Yeah, for me, this is best game of the weekend. One I'm really, really intrigued. I'm almost tempted for this to be the first Sunday Night Football I actually stay up for, other than our week one party. I like the Dolphins. I really do. I really like the Dolphins. I think the Eagles last week really had a come down to earth kind of game. And it feels like it's been coming. I've not been overly convinced by the Eagles. I thought Tampa were unlucky against them earlier on in the season. And I just really like this Dolphins offense. It got the potential to be a bit of a shootout, so I think this could be a really good game. But I'm just about the Dolphins.
Yeah, I think the Dolphins are the best team in football at the moment. I've not done my power rankings for 14 yards for a few weeks for obvious reasons, but the Dolphins are actually circled as my number one.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's 3 to 4 candidates for it at the moment, but the Dolphins are the ones that give me the most confidence because they're the ones that kill the teams the most. When they win hard. And, the only time I've seen that in the other top teams has been the 49ers against the Steelers week one. The Eagles are sneaking wins more than anything else at the moment.
Yeah, I think the beauty of the Dolphins is you just know that it could happen on any play as well. Whether it be Mostert or a Chain when he's back off injured reserve, sort of any rush play could go the distance. Tyreek Hill's obviously phenomenal. Jalen Waddle's not having the hugest impact on this offense at the minute, and it tells you just how explosive it is. So I really like the Dolphins, and like I say, I think it'll be a close game, but I just about fancy the Dolphins in a high scoring one. I think.
Yeah, same. And final one, you thought they were on a bye, but they're not. They're just playing on Monday. The 49ers travel to Minnesota. Got to be the 49ers, even after last week.
You would assume so. Like I say, they're going to want to bounce back. I still think they're one of the best teams in football. I picked them at the start of the year to go all the way and win overall. I think, along with the Lions, they've been the most impressive teams in the NFC. But it's very difficult to play against the number one ranked defense, mate, as a lot of teams will find out, hopefully, in the coming weeks. So,
absolutely. And you know what? It's also hard to play against. It's hard to play against that Cleveland weather, mate. Let's watch it one more time.
Moody, no good.
Yeah, I just really had to get that in again.
If Matt Gay pushes one wide right to win this week, we'll start a little montage, mate. We'll have to start putting them back to back. There'll be no talking on this podcast. It'll just be missed field goal after missed field goal.
I'll just replace the intro. It'll just be all the missed kicks. It'll be great. We'll rename the podcast. It'll be the No Good Podcast.
Careful, some people might say that already.
Only positive comments, please, folks. Shaun, thank you very much for talking Browns with me at the end of what has been a bloody tiring week coming back from Japan. Anyone that feels like going to Japan, it's bloody brilliant, but by the same token, the jet lag is real. And cheers for keeping the fort the last 3 weeks. We will be back, folks, on Sunday evening, hopefully to be talking about a positive win over the Indianapolis Colts. Time will tell. 6 o'clock kickoff on Game Pass. You don't have to worry about Sky or anything like that. And until then, go Browns.